In this video, I will go over how to calculate a deal-defined annual net profit for landlords. The weekly trainings that I hold are live via Skype and will be in more depth than this video while I answer your questions throughout. So first, I'm going to go and open Matrix MLS. I want to go into the Public Records tab for Realist Tax, which I right-click to open the link in a new window. I do that to keep my windows side by side to easily access. I go into Realist, and I'm going to put my subject property address. This gives me characteristics and details that I can find about my subject property from just behind the computer screen. First, I want to go down to the characteristics so I can accurately run a rental CMA and choose comps. I want to note the building square footage, how many beds there are, and how many baths there are. Once I've got that, I can go and run a rental CMA. So I'll go back to Matrix under search and do quick rental. Whenever I do these, I only use sold comps, so I unclick everything else and I go back 400 days for sold to get a general idea on the market and what's going on. Once I do that, I click the map tab and I search my property address. Once I've done that, being in Houston, I like to do an overlay of the flood zone. I like to get an idea, and in this case, the subject property is not in a flood zone. So I will take that off, but I will do elementary, middle, and high school tabs as an overlay as well to see if this is going to affect my rental value. I've got a good idea on the comps around my property, immediately around my subject property. I'm going to run a CMA with this rectangle and go to my results for my comps. Once I've done that, I like to categorize the comps priced highest to lowest. And this is because after I am done getting my property rent ready, I believe it will be top of the market value and not outdated like some of the properties that might be rented lower. So first I note this building square footage, and I'm going to get most alike comparison to my subject property within about 200 to 300 square feet. So I'm looking at the square footages getting most alike my subject property. I'm able to knock out a lot of comps. I go to refine. Once I click that and I click narrow, then it narrows down the comps that I chose to just the few. Now, I'm going to remember I've got 3 bedrooms, so I need to note that. I'm going to go back to my comps and choose that as well as my baths accordingly. I see there's some 2 bedrooms, so I'm going to take those out and then press narrow again. This narrows down my comps, and based on my comps, I've got a good idea where my property can rent based on days on the market comfortably that I could get it rented quickly. These comps are close to my property. I believe, based on what I'm seeing, that it could rent at $1,700 monthly. So these are numbers that I need to notate when evaluating a deal. The estimated rent that I came up with based off the CMA that I took is $1,700. That gives me a gross annual rent of $20,400. The gross annual rent will be all your profit with no cost deducted at the end of the year from your rental property. I need to note the annual taxes, so I go back to Realist, which has an area for total tax. That'll tell you the total taxes per year previously, so I go to the most previous year, 2019. It's got a high tax cost of about $7,300, so I need to notate that. Annual taxes, $7,300. Now my annual insurance costs. I already reached out to my preferred insurance agent that gave me an estimate of $1,000 for annual insurance. Now I need to see if there's HOAs, so I can do that by going back to each of my listings and my comps and going to each listing, where you will see on the bottom of the listing mandatory fees, it will say yes or no. And that means if there is HOA at that specific property. So likely if your comps say no, you don't have HOA either. So in this case, I'm not going to reduce price for HOA. Now, the big numbers you need to know is gross annual profit minus annual taxes minus insurance minus HOA, if any, which in this case, there is no cost for HOA, so I will not deduct that from the gross annual profit. Now I'm plugging in my numbers from my formula, which is gross profit minus taxes minus insurance, which gives me my net annual profit that comes down to $12,100. Now, this is not including maintenance fees, management costs, anything in that regards. This is to initially get an idea on a deal from behind your computer screen to see if it would work for you or not initially based on the numbers that you see. Feel free to join me every Saturday for more tips and tricks in real estate.